Noob School. Welcome back to Noob School, episode 142. Can you believe it? 142, still on the air. Today I've got, I think, an old friend and a new friend. I don't know what Chuck is. Chuck Crumpton is the founder and owner of the Bull Street Forum down in Charleston. And y'all do M&A, fundraising, all that kind of stuff down there, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Buying and selling businesses?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, Bull Street Forum. And Chuck and I really have only recently met, but when we started playing the name game, it's like we've been friends for 30 years.
Yeah.
We have the same kind of friends
Yep.
in Greenville and Charleston. So it's nice to finally sit down with you.
John, it's an honor to be here, and I feel like I know you.
Yeah.
Right after all these years and all of our friends that we know
Right.
together.
I know. Well, it's nice of you to drive up here from Charleston today. What we normally do at the beginning is just kind of back up and understand kind of where you're from and your path to get to this point, and then we'll talk, sales and other stuff. So,
Sure.
Tell us where you grew up.
I grew up on a tobacco farm
Yeah.
in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Nice.
So my blood is light blue,
Yeah.
but was raised. My parents are still alive. My dad raised me on the farm.
Yeah.
I think I started at 5 years old. My dad is still old school. Taught me how to work.
Yeah.
Gave me the gift of work ethic.
Right.
But grew up on the farm. He always said, Chuck, when you're able to, I want you to go to college and get off the farm and make a good living. Although my dad's made a great living as a tobacco farmer,
Right.
and probably even a better living as someone that manages his own stock portfolio since he retired about 20 years ago.
Good.
But grew up in Chapel Hill, came to Greenville in
Let me ask, was Phil Ford your favorite player?
Oh my gosh, Phil Ford.
From Rocky Mount.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually met Phil Ford when I was in high school. My buddy and I skipped school.
Yeah.
Rode with the preacher's wife to Chapel Hill on campus. And Rich Yoniker,
Yeah.
one of the players.
Lefty. I remember Rich.
Yep, he would hold the ball like a grapefruit.
Yeah. Yeah.
He and Phil were very close, and Rich just befriended these two little 14-year-old punks, my buddy and I, and actually took me in the locker room. We broke into Phil Ford's locker, and he offered me sweatbands and tennis shoes, and we didn't take anything. But through that day of being a derelict, actually met Phil Ford, and it was a great honor because, as a kid, you played basketball in the backyard, and you would pretend to be Phil Ford. 5 seconds to go, down by one, you get the ball, and tongue out, taking that last shot.
Yeah.
So yes, one of my
Mine
heroes
too.
for sure.
I know. That guy was so good. He had such poise. He just somehow controlled his body and everything where he was always going to get open and get that shot or make that steal or run that four corners.
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
didn't they beat South Carolina 3-2 one time or something? Oh, that was great. Those were great years of basketball.
Oh my gosh. I think I don't know, John, maybe the classic era of college basketball.
McAdoo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, I ran into. I was leaving a concert in Greenville at the Peace Center, and like 2 people away from me was this just good-looking black dude, just shoulders back, good-looking guy, just maybe an inch taller than me. I was like, I got to meet this guy, And I said, hey, I'm John Sterling, and what's your name? He goes, I'm Alex English. I'm like, holy shit, you're Alex English. And so I thought, as a sales guy, I'm like, well, I got to go for it, I might as well make a connection. So I said, well, listen, Alex, big fan of yours, love to connect sometime. Maybe I can help you with something in Columbia. I don't know. So I gave him a card. Well, that's it. It's a throwaway gesture. Like 15 minutes later, I get a text from Alex. great to meet you. Call me when you're coming to Columbia. Let's get together.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we've gotten together.
Wow.
He's a normal person now. He's no longer, the leader in scoring in the NBA.
Right.
For all those years.
Wow. Wow. That's cool.
Yes,
Good for you for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I practice is the 3-foot rule, where just say hello.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
You never know.
Yeah.
Could be Alex English. Yeah. Who are my other favorite Tar Heels? I remember when Joyce outjumped Lee Dedman.
Wow.
That's a long time ago.
Gosh, John, that's probably, well, I was, they say raised to Tar Heel. I was jerked up as a Tar Heel, right? But those names are probably before my time.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I was an avid Gamecock fan, and they had some great teams through there too. And it was a shame only one of them could go to the tournament, right?
Right. That's
Because they're
right.
both so good.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I had my moment with Dean Smith playing a basketball camp, and I literally had a really good game. Our team had just won the camp tournament. I made the last shot. So I'm in line, and he's going down the line, giving everyone a certificate, and he says something to people, whatever. So I'm thinking, this is it. He's going to say, I need you to stay a little later. We're going to need to talk to you. So he gets to me, and he goes, work on your shot selection. That was
No
just,
way.
and then he went to the next guy. I'm like, oh, that's it, okay?
Oh, man.
So no Tar Heels. But yeah, okay, so we could talk about Tar Heels all day. So you went, though, when you left the farm, Bob Jones.
Went to Bob
Is that
Jones.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
1981.
Right.
Yeah.
And why did you choose Bob Jones?
I think they probably chose me. They would maybe regret that today. I don't know, but of course I looked at UNC and some of the state schools in North Carolina. Being a 18-year-old hellion at the time, probably good that I didn't go to UNC.
Yeah.
At the time, it was the largest beer consuming per capita town in America.
Yeah.
And at 18, I was just wide open and very much a hellion. So I probably would have been dead or in jail had I gone to UNC. So Bob Jones was a good fit.
Yeah.
Met some nice people there over the years.
Yeah.
Not super connected, anymore, although it remains a good school. Got a good education.
Yeah.
I think it was for me and my personality, probably a safe landing spot, coming out of high school, and coming off the farm.
Yeah.
But it was good. And, one of the gifts I think that Bob Jones gave me was my introduction to Greenville. I'd never been to Greenville before. And, came down and toured the campus, fell in love with the city, and, spent over 25 years after I graduated in Greenville. And of course, some of those friends that we referenced are lifelong friends today.
Right.
And I probably would not have met them had I not gone to Bob Jones.
Right. Right. Yeah, we have a wonderful contingent of Bob Jones grads that stayed in Greenville.
Sure, yeah.
So that's good. I always tell people we hired a lot of Bob Jones folks and a lot of Citadel folks, and I think they're very similar schools. Because I went to the Citadel kind of for the same reason you went to Bob Jones. It's a safe landing place. You learn some discipline, and yours is more religious discipline.
Right.
Ours was more military, but everything else is about the same.
I agree.
We're walled in. We have rules. And so I think that's why we've enjoyed the Bob Jones people as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Never really thought of comparing the two, but I think it's a strong comparison.
Yeah,
I do.
not too far off.
Yeah.
We had a Citadel grad recently as the head of Bob Jones.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Steve, I can't remember his last name right now, but he was a theologian, I suppose, after he graduated from the Citadel, and got hired by Bob Jones and ran that place for several years at least. And he gave me the tour. I went out there and saw him, and couldn't have been nicer. So,
Well, the Citadel folks, obviously I'm in Charleston now, have been for 11 years, but The Citadel folks that I engage with are just wonderful people. My stepson actually went there for a couple of years before transferring to a school in Chicago, but it's a great school, great campus. Some of the nicest folks that, we socialize with are, part of the Citadel family, which has been really cool.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And it's interesting with, the Citadel being predominantly male, of course, and then my stepdaughter went to college of Charleston, which is largely female. You would think that it was sort of a match made in heaven, and there probably some commingling at some point.
So. I believe so.
The ratios are good.
Yeah, they are. They are. That's interesting. You said it about the Citadel people. I wonder about that too. I'm down there a pretty good bit. We still do some recruiting down there with on the Citadel campus for salespeople. Work with their sales. They have a sales club that I work with some, and they're great. I like the fact that they now have. You not only have to have a certain GPA to graduate, but you have to have a certain physical fitness level.
Right.
And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We're putting out people that are able to make the grade, able to stay out of trouble, and able to stay kind of physically fit. Yeah. And I remember the attitude when I was there, not for everyone, but for miscreants like me, was like, oh, this is stupid. Oh, I'm sick of this. I wish I was at Georgia. Those kind of negative thought patterns. And for the most part, the people I'm talking to there now are like, I'm doing this for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm going to be ready when I graduate. I'm going to get a good job. I'm going to have a nice life. And I've learned from talking to them that I had the stinking thinking when I was there. It's like, ugh, versus like, this is going to take me where I want to go. Yeah. And anyway, it's I guess you learn all the time somehow.
That's right.
From something.
Hopefully we are, right?
We're trying to.
We're trying.
Isn't it funny though? Sometimes it just floats on by.
Yeah. Yep.
You have to have your ears on.
Oh my gosh. I think it's safe to say, you probably feel the same way, John. If I knew then what I know now. Right. And I will say, would I've made better choices, different, of course, right?
Yeah.
But, I've been incredibly fortunate in my life, incredibly blessed in my life, right, to have been around good people, great family, good people that care about me, that look beyond, my obvious faults and just love me for who I am. And, but, at 60, you look back and you say, I would have tweaked a couple things here and there, but it's been wonderful, this journey. Yeah. Both in business and in life.
Yeah. I'm thankful too. I will say this in terms of a lesson, and I've said this before to sales groups, is, when I got out of the Citadel, decided I wanted to be a salesperson in tech, and I went to California, I went to Silicon Valley, I was knocking on doors. So I had no advantage. I was just like knocking on doors. And I ended up getting some sales jobs, and I learned some stuff and whatever. Subsequently find out there was a guy 6 years older than me from the Citadel who was the first VP of sales for Apple.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I was just too busy knocking on doors to think, like, are there any Citadel people out here in Silicon Valley who would give me a reason to come talk to them?
Wow.
So, again, it worked out fine, but that might have been a different path.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think, not to be overly philosophical, but I think what changes us, what makes us better, and again, I'm not a philosopher, right? But it's the people that we meet along our journey. It's the books that we read, right? Those forces, those people that just come into our life, and the books that come into our life, right?
Yeah.
They help mold and make us better.
Yes.
And help shape us.
Or worse.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I heard someone the other day, some lady, and they said, however you're feeling today, whoever you are today, it's just what's gotten loaded on your hard drive. You know, whatever we've allowed in our brain for the last 10 years is who we've become. If we're hanging around drug dealers
Right.
and watching bad stuff on TV and eating bad food, all that stuff we're putting bad in, we're going to be bad.
Right. Right. That's
I
right.
think that's why like in prison, what do you call it? I forget. But people get out and come back in. There's a word for it. I can't remember. But if someone's in prison, in a bad prison, and they're around bad people
Yeah.
for 6 years, when they get out, they're going to be a lot worse than they were when they went in.
Right. Right. This is a quick, maybe anecdotal story, but one of the first people that I met right before moving to Charleston was a Citadel grad. And I met him in a restaurant, which turned out to be one of my favorite restaurants in the world, downtown San Francisco, a vegan restaurant. And I'm probably the antithesis of a vegan, vegan guy. But this guy it was, Tuesday night, I'm traveling on business. The restaurant was not super busy, but this guy was sitting at the bar reading a book, which you don't see a lot of guys sitting at the bar reading a book.
Right.
And he was reading a book, and we struck up. He was probably 2 seats away. We just struck up a conversation. And I said, "Tell me what you're reading." And he opened the book cover back, and the book, which is my favorite book of my life, was called Unbroken.
Oh, yeah.
And Phil was reading this book sitting at the bar.
Yeah.
And I said, "Tell me about the book." He said, "Read the book. It will change your life." And I said, "Great. Appreciate that recommendation." Ultimately, I bought the book and read it, and it did change my life. But Phil was a Citadel guy living in Charleston. And not only did he turn me on to a great book, but he also turned me on to a great restaurant in Charleston, Bowen's Island. And, Phil and I became fairly good friends. And, Phil's connection to some other folks, just building a friend network, right? Not having known a lot of folks in Charleston, but Phil was so kind and so generous with that recommendation, and turned out to be just a heck of a nice guy.
Now, who wrote the Unbroken book? Who is that?
It's a story about Louis Zamperini, and the author is Laura Hildenbrand, I believe.
Okay. I was thinking it was something else. I have not read that book. I'll read it if it's your favorite book.
Oh my gosh, John, it's incredible. You really don't want to put it down.
Okay.
And I think a movie was made by it with Angelina Jolie.
Okay.
Maybe in 2014.
We'll definitely watch the movie, but I'll try to read the book. That's good.
It's great. And just one footnote to that, not to get off track, but I reached out. My son transferred from College of Charleston, San Diego, and we went out and spent 2 months. And I had just read the book. One thing led to another. I reached out to Mr. Zamperini. And at the time, he was 98 or 99.
Wow.
And we were trying to set up a meeting because I wanted my son to be able to meet this war hero.
Yeah.
Which he has an incredible story. And I wanted my son, Charles, to meet Mr. Zamperini. And we were trying to work things out, logistics, and his handler, and, he was up in the Los Angeles area. And sort of at the very end of that endeavor, we could not work it out. And he unfortunately passed away a month later. And I have a little bit of regret because I would have driven to LA in a heartbeat from San Diego just to sit down and to meet the man, to honor the man, to have some conduit between his incredible life, resilient life, and my son as a college kid. That would have been a really good connection and a meaningful connection. Wasn't meant to be, but it's a phenomenal book, and I highly recommend it.
I'll read it and then we can talk about it in Charleston.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
That'd be great.
So, after Bob Jones, what happened?
After Bob Jones, I came out of school. I believed I had the sales DNA, which is hard to ascertain when you're picking tobacco leaves. When it's 98 degrees and 100% humidity, and
Yeah.
you've got nicotine in your pores from the tobacco leaf. But I felt like I had the sales DNA. I was drawn to sales and people, and interviewed several companies out of college, and a fairly young startup telecommunications company called Tailman. I interviewed with them, Leighton Cubbage,
Yep.
Judy Slaughter, all that whole team of people interviewed me, and I went to work for Leighton. Leighton
Okay.
was my first boss.
What a great first job.
Oh my gosh, unbelievable.
Yeah.
David Hudson.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew David.
Oh,
David
yeah.
was my first manager, and of
Wow.
course David reported to Leighton
He was like a year older than you, right? I mean,
right out of the Citadel.
yeah. He was. I think he was 1 year younger than me, and he was in the company next to me. Yeah, that's a good manager too. Was my brother there yet?
I don't think so.
Okay.
This would have been 1985.
Yeah.
And I think
He's younger.
Yes.
So it would have been later.
Yep, I think so.
So maybe you missed him. You there with Dan?
Dan came. I met Dan in the CTG
Okay.
days. I was not an official part of CTG. We had gone our separate ways. Leighton had left
Yeah.
Tillman, and he and Charlie started CTG. And That's where I met Dan.
Yeah, okay.
It was in the CT, just being a friend and sort of on the
Yeah.
periphery.
Dan, when he got out of school, he wanted to work there so bad because all of his friends were there.
Yeah.
And Leighton was like, I love you, man, but we don't have anything right now. And Dan was like, that's all right. I'll be here tomorrow. And he goes, we don't have anything right now. I can't pay you. And Dan goes, I didn't ask you to pay me.
Oh no.
He goes, I'm just coming to work here. And then when I provide some value, you can start paying me. He did that routine for like a week and then started showing up. And Leighton's like, give him a spot, give him a desk.
That's awesome.
But that's Dan.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's Dan's style.
Dan's a good man.
Yeah, he is.
I don't see him near as often as I'd like to anymore. But
Well, I'll have to change that. So you got your sales wheels with Leighton and that crew. Did you go from there to Medpoint, or was there something in between?
yeah, so when I left Tillman, I was there with Leighton for 4 years, and he went to start CTG with Charlie Hauser. I got my first management job, and I had a little bit of management experience with Leighton in one of the markets, but competitor to Tillman recruited me away as a regional guy, and I took that role, my first true management job with people, and it was really interesting, John, because basically I took all of that data and style, from Leighton and the group, and simply transported it over to this new company that had recruited me. And if you were to walk into my office, this first management job in the late 80s, if you were to 1989, if you were to walk into my office, management job, it would look just like a Tailman office. Cultural, even decor, certainly how we ran the business, how we ran the branch.
Yeah.
Because that model that that Leighton and the whole team, what they created was transportable, right? It was doing the right things, doing it with integrity, all the tenets of success. So I just basically took that model and took it over, to another company, and that was my first management job. It was a great experience, good experience turning around a couple regions for that company. The fellow I worked for was Pete Lofton, who went on to be a real character. Sold his company to Deltacom for over $100 million, and ended up buying the Versace mansion down in South Beach.
Wow.
Crazy story.
Wow.
But Pete gave me a chance to manage, to lead.
Yeah.
And again, it was just transferring those skills,
Yeah.
and everything that I'd learned,
Yeah.
to now leading people and managing people.
Yeah.
And the teams that I managed were phenomenally successful, not because of me,
Yeah.
but because of the pattern, the paradigm had been set. I just took it across the street.
You figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I tell people all the time, I mean, if you take someone like yourself with a good background, work ethic, sales bones, you have a lot of things going for you, and then you add actual knowledge of
Right.
what to do.
Right.
Now you're really dangerous.
Right.
And, that's wonderful. I mean, that little model moved all over the place. In fact, it moved all the way to California. Those guys at, I can't remember the name of it, but two guys from California came to Layton, became distributors in California. And then they went back and pretty much copied the model and eventually started their own
Is that right?
deal out there. And they just sold it back to ScanSource a few years ago for like $100 million.
Wow.
So, that model has moved everywhere. But Layton is he's a sales genius. He's been on the podcast
Oh, that's awesome.
early on. Yeah.
Well, I can't, to this day, of course, we probably all call him Cub.
Yeah.
Right?
Cub man.
To this day, he is my, he's my mentor.
Yeah.
He sits on my board, chairs my board. He's a great guy. And he's the same guy today as it was in, when I interviewed with him in early 1986, right
Yeah.
out of, right out of school.
Yeah.
But what Layton did, which I think is so critical for leaders, servant leaders, is he took what was probably some just God-given skills and gifts. And one of those gifts was my dad taught me how to work. My dad gave me the gift of work ethic, and I worked my tail off. And I worked my tail off for Layton. But what Layton did, and that whole team, Layton gets a lot of the credit, but the team also gets a lot of the credit, is they gave me a vehicle, right? They gave me a jar to pour the juice into,
Yeah.
So it was not that hard if you were willing to work, right? And I didn't know any different than to work. I worked my tail off. And I just simply took that methodology, that structure that Layton and the team developed. I just put hard work to the recipe, and the soup came out damn good, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it turned out to be a great mix between the work ethic and the attitude and activity and the active listening. It made for a great formula for success. And what's really cool about that is you can take a lot of folks that are a lot more talented than I am in the sales arena, or business development, or leadership development, whatever, and you employ all of those characteristics, hard work, attitude, activity. You put all that together, success is really inevitable.
It is.
Right?
It absolutely is.
It takes the guesswork out of it.
It does. And now, success, some people say, well, I want to be like Bill Gates or Elon. Okay, maybe not that. But obviously, all the success you can handle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what most people seem to do is they, work really hard and they get to where they're kind of comfortable and they back off a little bit. Maybe they enjoy their life more. I don't know. But anyone that we would identify, let's say David Hudson, for example, good guy, good family, went to the Citadel, good sales bones. If he just follows this process, he's going to be successful, and he's done it over and over again.
Right.
Did it here, did it here, did it here, did it here.
Right.
Every time.
Right.
Now, did he create, Apple? No. But I mean, all these companies have been successful following, and your company too. So let's lead that into, you had a great initial career,
Right.
Tillman, and then you went to got pulled away to something like them and ran a bigger region. How did you morph that into your own company?
So I stayed in the telecommunications technology space
Okay.
up until the late 90s. Felt like and that ultimately ended up in a Fortune 15 company, what we used to know as MCI, now part of the Verizon family, on the national account side. And I had an itch to do my own thing. Actually started a recruiting company coming out of MCI, and then we were barreling toward the dot-com blow up, and I had six recruiters,
Yeah.
and we were crushing it. We had some, phenomenal clients.
Yeah.
Dan being one, actually.
Yeah.
And doing well, and then everything just blew up in the late 90s.
No one's hiring.
No one's hiring. People are laying off. I mean, it was insane.
My God.
And I had mouths to feed.
Yeah.
Not only my family, right, and my two little kids and stay-at-home mom, but these other families.
Yeah.
And so we maneuvered, we shifted, we pivoted, all those words that are synonymous, I guess. And I knew it was going to take a while, probably 5 or more years for, telecommunications or technology to sort of rebound. I didn't have that because I didn't have that much cash in the bank, I had to feed the kids.
Right.
For some reason, they were hungry every day.
Yeah. They don't know what's going on at the office.
They don't know, don't care,
Yeah. Don't
and,
care.
In Duke Power, they don't live on love. So
No.
I had, a mortgage,
Yeah.
typical situation where I think I was making $72,000 at the time, and it took $71,000 to live. So I couldn't have a bleep on the radar.
Right.
Long story. I did research in the healthcare space, and really found out that there were some gaps, particularly in pharmacy, which is interesting because there's really no direct line between telecommunications and pharmacy work. But I started a pharmacy company, and I had about 40 pharmacists working for me, and I would dispatch them on a PRN basis to retail pharmacies and hospital. Greenville Hospital System was a client, and we did well to the point that I knew I was probably going to grow the business, and the business was going to change. I was a little concerned about scaling at that point. It was hard enough managing 40 pharmacists. Had a few of those people that had worked for me help me out from an infrastructure standpoint. So I sold that business in the late 90s. But that model gave me the clarity and the inspiration and really the wherewithal to start Medpoint in 2001. And the model was real similar. You'd have your clients that you served, and then you would connect the technical resources, whether in the prior life, the pharmacists, in the Medpoint life, it was FDA people. There were FDA experts, a lot of scientists, some doctors, but folks that knew FDA, and we hired senior people. So Medpoint was really a connection, a conduit between the client, medical device and pharmaceutical clients of the world, and the people that did all the technical subject matter experts.
Okay.
So we just took that model from the pharmacy company, and we, kind of similar to what we were talking about earlier, transferred it over to Medpoint. And our clients were the pharmaceutical medical device companies, and we did well.
Yeah, you must have.
We did okay.
What did the company look like when you sold it?
We had almost 250 folks.
Okay.
When I sold out in the height of COVID, July 1st of 2020, to private equity out of the Midwest.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing journey for me, almost 20 years, from the tool shed of my garage, right off of Wade Hampton. I could show you pictures of that little tool shed, and we didn't have a lot of money, starting the business, but we had an idea. I felt like we had a really good model. We were very fortunate, John, to have in the early days clients that just gave me an opportunity. I think they liked me. I think they trusted me. Maybe a couple of them felt sorry for me.
Whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But they gave me a shot.
Yeah.
They gave me a shot.
Yeah.
And we were also very fortunate to be introduced to some key consulting folks, subject matter experts that knew what they were doing, all senior level people. And, so we started this business. It was wobbly. I got to where I could spell FDA, and that was probably the extent of my technical abilities. But, I sort of focused on the relationship. And I saw that there was a gap, there was a disconnect between the need and the technical resources. And then the technical resources, I saw where the delta was, they were really good at, FDA, CFR 820 Part 11, the regulatory Bible of the healthcare industry.
Yeah.
They were really good at that, but they were not so good with the relationships. They didn't want to go out and do sales or business development or marketing.
I mean, yeah.
They wanted to do regulatory.
What could be worse for them?
Oh, it was anathema for them, right?
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, they don't want to pick up the phone and talk to somebody they've never talked to, but they were damn good at understanding the regulations.
Yeah.
So Medpoint really served we were just the conduit between the need.
What a niche.
It was a great niche.
Wow. So you learned you figured out how to do that with the pharmacists, sold that business, and then did the same thing with the FDA experts.
Exactly.
Wow, that's so cool.
And I'll tell you an early story really quick that illustrates just the power of that model, John. And this is way beyond Chuck Crumpton's ability, right? I was driving way beyond my headlights. But I knew what these two parties needed, right? They needed each other. They had a hard time finding each other. But in the early days, 2 years after we started, and we were barely keeping the lights on, but we were out telling the story and knocking on doors, and I had this opportunity to knock on the door, a live audience, with the head of regulatory for Johnson & Johnson. And honest to goodness truth, I set an appointment in February of 2004. I remember it like it was yesterday. Flew to Newark, New Jersey, got a rental car, drove through the snow to building number 10 at the J&J headquarters, parked in the snow, I think it was 10 or 12 inches of snow on the ground. Parked the car. Now, I'm a redneck from North Carolina, and we don't do good in the snow. We were just talking about Charleston.
Yeah.
Parked the car, and it was probably 200 feet or so from the visitor parking to the front door of the corporate office. As I'm walking across the snow, my phone rings, and it's the assistant to the lady, the VP that I'm scheduled to meet with.
Yeah.
And the assistant said, I'm so sorry to tell you, but, and she mentioned the person's name, she's not going to be able to see you today. And it took me $1,000 to get there. I think I had $1,500 in the bank. True story. And I called the assistant by name, and I said, I'm sorry, in complete respect, I don't have a choice. I have to meet with her. I have to. And after a couple minutes of silence, she goes, okay, sit in the lobby and I'll try to work it out. 2.5 hours later, I got a 5-minute audience. And the VP at J&J said, who are you? What can you do for us? Why should I give you a chance? And I said, if you'll just give me an opportunity, I promise I will work hard for you. I'll work with integrity, and I'll help you meet this need.
Yeah.
Again, this need of connection to the subject matter expert. Just give me a shot.
Yeah.
She goes, you got one shot.
Okay.
It took 6 months to negotiate the contract with J&J Legal because it's a big deal. But we had a first couple folks come on the team. We began to serve J&J. And now, over 20 years later, we've done well over $100 million with Johnson & Johnson.
That's wonderful.
But it started with that trek in the snow on that cold February day.
Yeah, and I would say, showing up, big thing, and then not taking no for an answer, but doing it politely.
Right.
You want to be a jerk about it.
That's right. That's right.
You want to, it's our fault. We have to see her. We'll wait all day. We'll wait till tomorrow, whatever. That's wonderful. What a great story. You saved the company.
Oh, my gosh. In those days, John, it was, slim pickings. Again, we were wobbly at best. And we had picked up some good clients in the first 2 years, Kimberly-Clark and Fuji Medical, some of the good companies. But J&J was our largest healthcare company in the world, right? That was our launch. And we doubled, I think, year over year with them for probably 6 or 7 years. And again, the relationship is still very healthy today. And so when I sold the business in 2020, that was one of the big value components for the private equity firm because they were buying a 18-year relationship with Johnson & Johnson.
And they might have other stuff they want to sell in there, right? Other companies and
absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting. Did it help you sell other pharmaceutical companies to say we're working with J&J and?
Yeah, instant credibility. As a preferred partner for Johnson & Johnson, their logo on our material.
It's like, well, I don't have to check you guys when you're good.
Yeah. If they have vetted you, we're good.
Yeah.
It's
that's wonderful.
Yeah, it was.
It's funny. And it does. These deals, people talk about getting big deals and selling Fortune 500 companies. You just got to find a way in somewhere. Maybe it's just some small plant in Aiken or something, but it's Johnson & Johnson.
Right.
And you're working there, and now you can call the next plant. Very rarely do you start like you did with the VP of the whole thing.
Yeah. Again, if you look at my 61 years of life, it's really characterized by, yes, a lot of hard work, but also just being fortunate to have met incredible people. Right. And to have been connected to people that are connected to people, right? It's kind of life. But I think if we do our business, we do our relationships, we do our families with integrity, and we try to look out for the other person, right? We try to esteem them higher and build them up and encourage them. People want to help people that help people.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
People helped me. People gave me a shot. They gave me a chance.
Right.
Because I do think they could see I wasn't the smartest guy in the room or the best looking guy in the room, but I was honest, and I was straightforward, and we tried to conduct ourselves with integrity every step of the way. And even in the J&J world, not to beat that horse to glue, but we became over the years we became their largest compliance partner in the world. And we were trusted because we did it the right way.
Where are you guys located again?
Yeah. Well, this is funny. 10 years into the relationship, right? I was in New Jersey with their head of procurement.
Yeah.
They had invited me up to speak at the corporate office, and we were a good little success story. And the head of procurement looked at me, and over lunch he scratched his head and he said, "How in the hell did you get in the building?" That was his question.
Yeah.
And I said, just kept knocking on the door. Just kept knocking on the door.
Yeah.
And, you guys gave us a shot, and then it's incumbent upon us. What do? You've given me the ball.
Yeah.
Right? You've put the ball in Phil Ford's hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, it's up to him to score.
Right.
And it was up to me and our team. And let me just be real clear, John. The secret sauce to Medpoint that became a very nice target for acquisition, the secret sauce was our people. We had phenomenal people, employees and consultants, and it's because of our people we're able to grow that thing to a multi-million-dollar success with 250. I think the company now has over 300 people around the world.
That's great.
But it's our people. The people get all the credit, right?
Yeah, well, you should get a lot of credit too, my friend. You made it happen. And, people all the time look at you today and like, I want to be like Chuck. I'm like, well, let's go back to when he was in his garage and he didn't have enough money to get back from New York.
True. Very true. I couldn't come home empty-handed.
I know. It happens all the time, though. People only see this person.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we do here is we unwind, and tell the whole story so people understand it. And you have such I would call it a stair step or a ladder, up the ladder kind of thing. You learned at a good place, went to another place, did well, tried a few things. You really ran into a buzzsaw with the .com thing, but we all did.
Right.
And then you adjusted from that and learned, and and then you had this phenomenal 20-year run and a great exit. But then, after that great exit, you go and start another company. So tell us about Bull Street, why you started it, what it does, and what people should know about it.
Oh, well, John, thank you for asking. When I sold Medpoint 2020, which is almost 5 years ago, it's hard to believe. Time flies, but I still felt like I had some juice in the tank. I had gone through 2 exits, one, both successful, one very successful. And I felt like, with the heart of a teacher, which I have a heart of a teacher, I wanted to take some of those experiences, some of those nuggets, along with all the mistakes I made. I made a million mistakes along the way. But to take both the mistakes and the wisdom and bring it to business owners, a lot of business ownership is tough, right? The life of an entrepreneur or a founder, it can be very lonely, it can be very isolated, a lot of dark days. I can't tell you how many times I drove home from my first office out of the garage I paid $75 a month for. And, driving home saying, how are we going to make it? And pulling up, seeing the dog, barking at me, and my kid's hungry, and, my wife that really wanted to pay the more, those days formed a burning desire inside of me to help other business owners and founders and entrepreneurs to have that same dream. And it's difficult. Business is tough. You know that.
Yeah.
It's tough. And I wanted to take all those mistakes and all those wins and all those losses and package it and be able to communicate a value proposition to our business owners. Folks that have a desire to build their business, whether they're in plumbing or HVAC or roofing or software or healthcare, it doesn't matter. But for them to take their dream and their hard work and their sacrifice and to be able to one day, whether they sell it or keep it or give it away, is to envision and encourage these business owners to build something that is valuable. They can exit if they want to. They can give it to their children,
Yeah.
sell it to their employees, but they have something of value that's a tangible value that they can sell. That is a marketable enterprise.
Right.
And I felt like I could bring that to the table, and I had a desire to help all those folks that may have been still stuck in the tool shed,
Yeah.
and to give them a vision and a journey
Yeah.
to an exit success. So we started Bull Street with that mission, is to help business owners and business leaders build and sell remarkable companies, and to do it with the same stuff that was on the tobacco farm and in Leighton Cubbage's office, and all the other chapters that came in my life. To take all of that stuff and transport it to all these business owners who needed inspiration, they needed a track to run on,
Right.
they needed expertise in operations or sales or marketing. They just, because we don't know what we don't know, right?
Right.
And when we are in business, in those lonely days of business, if we have comrades around us that get it, they understand our plight, then they can grow and learn and develop and build a business that they can sell.
Yeah.
And that's frankly been my passion now for 5 years, and I love doing it.
Yeah.
I'm learning every single day,
Yeah.
which is phenomenal.
So you work mostly with business owners. I think about it this way because I sometimes buy these software companies, and of course we had one that we sold. But I've seen more business owners, including us at one point, whose attitude was, hammer down, focus on our business. If it gets sold one day, it gets sold one day.
Right.
Kind of blinders on.
Right.
And I think that's a big mistake. I think you're just much better off. One of the great guys in Greenville, Clarence Balknight's business, he used to pay someone like yourself to come once a year and do a valuation,
Right.
and then explain to everyone why it was valuated and what levers we could pull this year to make it go up.
Right.
Might not be what you're working on.
Right.
And, they ended up selling it for a pile of money. But I love the idea of paying someone like you, not just to sell the business one day, but along the way, I pay you to advise me on what this business needs to do to get top value. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You pay your tax guy.
Right.
Do your taxes. You pay your insurance guy. You pay your lawyer.
Right.
Should be someone to help you with something far more important,
Absolutely.
which is how much you're going to sell your business for.
For most of us, it's our biggest asset in life.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's what we build. It's where we spend 10 hours a day
Right.
and half the weekends focusing on, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick example, and this is my true story. 2018, 2 years before we sold, I was approached unsolicited, small little private equity firm, boys that had just graduated, with their MBAs and had a little cash, and they approached, and, we went through the process. I turned down the deal, as we got into some due diligence. Didn't like the terms. Price was good, terms were not good. So I pulled out of the deal, and I went to our senior management team at Medpoint, and we sat down, and these were 5 of the best people I've known in my life. And these people loved me, and they had my back, because I was going through a very difficult time in my life through a divorce. And these 5 people, some of the best human beings I'd ever been around in my life. And they said, Chuck, we've got you. And I went through this process, and I reconvened my posse. And I sat down and I said, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is we are attractive. People want to date us. The bad news is we're not ready to get married. And I said, let's spend the next 2 years turning over every rock in the company. And we did very diligently. We spent 2 years. We looked behind every rock, under every plank, behind every plant, from operations, sales, marketing, financial, customer service, SAT score, everything. We peeled it apart. And we made every part of our business better and stronger. And then when we went to market 2 years later as a robust and healthy healthcare compliance company firm, we got 5 LOIs, and they started at 30% more than where we were in 2018. So we had 5 LOIs on the table, end up selecting one of those partners, and it was a great partner to have. And we did the business, the deal on July 1st. But that's a true story of how we took all of these overlays, right, from every sphere of our business. Now we just take it at Bull Street. We just take that overlay, that paradigm, to these small and medium-sized companies, 50 million or less, and we just unpack every area of their business with the intention of making it better,
Right.
so that the business owner who has put their blood, sweat, and tears into this gets a payday. I'll give you one quick example.
Sure.
We sold a $42 million roofing company in October, and we did our congratulatory dinner, good food and good wine, and we had our team, right? Our team sitting at the table with our client. My client, who had spent 40 years of his life building this business, was sitting to my left. And this is a roofer. We're talking a man's man.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
A man's man.
Not a software guy.
Yeah. Not a consulting consultant like me, but a man's man, tough. And he looked over at me. He put his arm on my shoulder. And he leaned over John, and he said, "Look at this team." And we were all laughing and talking, having steak and wine at Hall's in Charleston, sitting there in the corner. And he started crying. And he said, "Chuck, what you guys have done, you've changed my life, my children's life, and my grandchildren's lives. You guys have changed our family."
Yeah.
And he cried, and I hugged him, and I said, "You get all the credit, bro. It's your 40 years of hard work, you and your wife, building this business. We were able to join you on the last part of the journey.
Yeah.
But the reward, don't get me wrong, the fees are very nice, but the reward of seeing that older gentleman just break down with emotion,
Right.
because he got the payday that he worked for
Right.
and deserved.
Yeah.
And now it's going to change his family tree.
Yep. Yep.
That,
That feels good.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's, and I'll forget about the dollars that came with that deal.
Yeah.
I'll never forget about the tears
Yeah.
that came with that moment.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, you should feel good about that. You do feel good about it. And again, I think people can run a business for a long time, and when they sell it, they're either selling it on the offense or on the defense.
Right.
You put them on the offense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Get
Great
the
way of
numbers
saying
just
it.
right, and we're going to present ourselves and get 5 LOIs versus, 2 guys who just got out of Duke.
Yeah.
Well, let's say you're one of those people that want your kind of help. Tell us the best way to get in touch with you.
BullStreetForum.com.
Okay, .com.
Yep.
Okay.
Our M&A division of our business, Bull Street Mergers.
Okay.
The two work in tandem, in
Okay.
parallel.
Okay.
The forum is the building part.
Okay.
80% of companies that raise their hands
Yeah.
saying we want to sell are not ready. They've got something broken in
Yeah.
the business.
Yeah.
That's where the forum just comes in. We come alongside that business owner,
Yeah.
and then we just, similar to a home, we get it ready to go to market. And that's what I love. That's where my heart is, honestly.
The preparation.
Preparation, getting it ready. We think like a buyer with all of our clients. And if we can think like a buyer, then we're always 2 steps ahead of the game, right? We know the questions they're going to ask, the potential buyer. So we anticipate those questions. We turn over every rock like we did at Medpoint in 2018. And we just work with those business owners to get ready
Yeah.
to go to market. Some of them, a year or 2 years later, some of them say, I don't think I'm going to sell this business. It's
Churning out cash, right?
We're 3 times more profitable than we used to be, whatever,
right.
or I got my life back because we built infrastructure, whatever.
I call that the entrepreneur's dilemma, which is when things are like in the tank, you can't sell it. You're stuck.
Right.
Right? And when they're going great, who would ever leave this? I mean, nothing will ever go wrong. So, I mean, we went through that at our company like 5 times. Like we'd get down, like, if there's anything, if I can get out of this thing, if I can make $1, I'll get out. And then you're up here and you're like, I'm not selling.
Yeah.
This thing's going up forever.
Right.
So, a couple of quick questions. Favorite book? What's your favorite book? Unbroken. We already did that, right?
Definitely Unbroken.
And then favorite band?
I would say Zach Brown.
Zach Brown. Very nice.
Tight competition between Zach Brown and Elton John.
Elton. He's hard to beat.
Saw him in person 10 rows back and it made a lasting memory, man.
Where'd you see him?
Vegas.
Vegas.
Caesars, yeah. Phenomenal.
And favorite word?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness. We all need some of that.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, thank you. It was great. I expected it to be great, and it was great. I really enjoyed it, and I learned more about you. And I think it's a great message for all the people watching. Is you can do everything. You should try to do everything right and prepare yourself, but realize there's going to be a .com bust, and there's going to be maybe a divorce. I mean, there's going to be things. You just got to persevere.
That's right.
Unbroken, right?
Right.
So anyway, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
All right.
A real honor.